Greetings, everyone. This is Mark Herzog from BIC Magazine. Welcome to today's webinar on improving industrial life cycle, joint integrity, safety, and productivity. A few quick pointers regarding your webinar console. There is an Ask Question box to text in questions anytime during the presentation. The Q&A will occur at the end. If you do experience any technical problems, click on the yellow icon question mark on the console. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Enerpac, a global market leader in high-pressure hydraulic tools, controlled force products, portable machining, and solutions for the precise positioning of heavy loads. When safety and precision matter, professionals in our industry rely on Enerpac for quality tools, services, and solutions. Please visit them at enerpac.com or enerpac.com/bolting. Today's presenter is John Bice, Senior Commercial Marketing Manager at Enerpac, who represents the company's torque and tension tools to OEMs, contractors, and operations and maintenance teams in North America and South America. Prior to that role, John worked in different parts of the company, including Hydrotite and Sweeney in the bolting tools market. Now I'd like to hand the mic over to John.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning. I appreciate that introduction, and all of you joining. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody on the line. Appreciate you taking some time to join us here for this webinar. We're very excited. Been working on some content here for the last few months to bring some good new content to you regarding your tool and maintenance cycle. So thanks again for joining here. A brief agenda that we're going to work through with you guys. We've got an introduction to the platform that we're going to be working on today, talk through some of the technology trends that we have for industrial tools, touch on why tools are calibrated, talk about the importance of tool maintenance, and then kind of wrap that all into the outcome that we're looking for, which is safety and productivity on our job sites through proper fleet management. At the very end of the presentation today, we will have some time for questions and answers. And keep in mind, there is a Q&A box through the screen here where you can type in questions throughout the presentations. Normally, if we were all in a large auditorium doing this live, I'd encourage you to raise your hand and interrupt and ask a question on the fly. However, given the virtual meeting that we have here, please use that Q&A box, enter in questions as they come up, and then as we get to the end, I'll be more than happy to address them as best I can. So with that, we'll kind of dive right into the introduction. I always like to start with kind of a state of mind, and to do that, I've always been a big fan of quotes. Of course, we've been putting this presentation together over the last couple months, and it was coming around the 4th of July for all of us here in the United States. So the first quote that I want to set your mind with is from Benjamin Franklin, and it's that lost time is never found again. All of us that work in our industry, we are about productivity, getting the job done safely, getting the job done fast, because it is about lost time, and whether that lost time creates a financial pressure or operational pressure on our job sites and our teams. We know that lost time is critical in any industry out there. Another great quote that I found kind of prepping for today is, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. We have to be able to mate all of our industrial tools into both of those categories. We want to seek out the best industrial tool solution that is efficient, but it also is highly effective. And it is effective through its accuracy by way of calibration, by way of gauge corrections, instrumentation, data logging. That's all related to the effectiveness. So we have to marry the two ideas of being highly efficient and highly effective, and managing our tools and our industrial tools that we use out in the field is bringing us both of those things. And the last quote that I put in there again for all of us in the industry about getting the job done, it comes from Stephen King, the author. It says that amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us get up and go to work. And boy, does that summarize it. We are about getting tools into our hands, getting out into the job site, and keeping all of our assets working in top performance, whether that's in the power gen space, whether that's in oil and gas, or general manufacturing or infrastructure. Any of the industries, it's about getting up and going to work. And of course, coming off the pandemic times here, we're all leaning into that and looking to progress our industry forward, get back to work, get everybody out on the job sites and taking care of our assets. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about the technology trends in industrial tools. Another thing that I like to do in presentations is bring in our consumer lives and try to mate it with our industrial professional lives. So as we interact with our day-to-day companies for our everyday life, be it a grocery store, be it a gas station, be it Amazon.com for things in our lives, we feel that on a day-to-day presence where technology continues to improve, whether that's a phone app, whether that's email-based feedback, whether that's emailing receipts, real basic things that we see in our everyday lives, tracking numbers for shipments, proof of delivery, all those types of things that we experience every day in our consumer lives, we want to bring into the professional world and apply that type of efficiency to our industrial tools and how we do business with it. So we start out with our industrial tools that are there to do a specific job. And it started out, as we all know, and very much get the job done. Now, you'll see throughout this presentation, most of my background is in bolting, so torque tools and tension tools. But I definitely want to be sure that we can apply these theories and these in practice to any industrial tool out there. At Enerpac, we do lots with lifting cylinders and pumps and power packs and things like that. So I'll use bolting tools as a reference, but definitely know that when I talk about innovation and I talk about technology coming in, it definitely applies to all of our industrial tools that are out there from not only Enerpac, but any other industrial tool supplier that you have out there that we're trying to create the best tool experience for you guys, the end users. So specific to torque wrenches, we go back in time and you have an old school slugging wrench, which was, how do you take a bolt and nut that's 3 inches across the flat and tighten that thing down? Well, the old school way was with a sledgehammer and a slugging wrench, and that was used for decades to turn that nut down, tighten that joint, and get ready to go to work. As you can imagine, the margin of error was extremely high. You were simply slugging a stud and nut with a sledgehammer. You had operators holding on with their bare hands and a sledgehammer applying force. So we had a long ways to go, and our industry has been able to do that. So we started out with that picture, as you see on the far left, which is basically a hydraulic cylinder replacing the sledgehammer. So you get precision, you get control, you get your hands away from the activity, you get some performance features out of it. There's certainly more accuracy involved in that. And that was, beginning in the 80s is when the hydraulic torque wrench started to really take form and take shape into what we see and use today. And all of that comes from innovation. So way back when, a company would be on the job site seeing a slugging wrench and a sledgehammer, and they would say, we need to do this safer. We need to do this more efficient, more effective. And that's where the technology can start to come in. So listening to customer pain points is a huge piece of innovation. Make sure that our companies, any of our tool manufacturers that are out there, are working on tool improvements and tool advancements that will directly impact and directly improve how our end users are getting the job done. And that includes observing work performed out in the field. We got to get out and be in front of the operators, have dialogue with them, spend some time with them, watch them use the tools, look for the points where the improvements can be had. And then the last point here is taking back all that field data that we capture and then incorporate that into the design ergonomics as we produce new series of tools. We want to make sure that we're reducing fatigue. We want to make sure that we're reducing discomfort and injury out in the field with all the design advancements that we use. So you'll see 3 torque wrenches on the right. Those are the latest and greatest tools that Enerpac has for square drive torque wrenches. on your screen. And we're adding handling points. We're adding safety features where it actually will hold and lock the tool, for example. And all of that is going into how do we keep an end user safe, yet working as efficient and effective as possible. So trying to innovate tools, trying to drive technology into the tools from a hands-on standpoint, meaning the mechanical standpoint. So mechanically, our tools are going to work stronger. They're going to work safer. They're going to be more effective from a mechanical standpoint. That's kind of what this slide is about, is driving innovation that way. Another way that we're trying to enhance the use of tools out in the field is this long arcing shift as we go from corded products to cordless product. Said another way, introducing battery tools. And again, going back to my reference of in our consumer lives, I still remember having a corded drill and plugged into the wall and going out to drive some stud screws while doing barn walls, for example. Well, when the battery-powered drills came out from a Porter Cable or any of the large tool companies back in the 90s, it made a huge difference. You weren't lugging around extension cables. You weren't eyeing up where the closest outlet is. You had a given runtime. And that shift from corded technology into battery-powered or cordless technology has been tremendous. And of course, starting in the consumer side, but it's absolutely making its way into the industrial world. And Enerpac is certainly wanting to be a large part of it. We've made battery-powered pumps, hydraulic power units. We've made battery-powered hydraulic torque wrench pumps. And we also have battery-powered cutters for chain cutters. Actually, dating all the way back to 1995, Enerpac introduced the Walk Pack, which was the first to market high-pressure hydraulic pumping unit that was battery-powered, and that's pictured there on the right. You can even see the little free shipping tag in that image to kind of set the time and look at that battery pack and the pendant. So we've come a long ways. We're 25, 26 years or past that picture there on the screen, and we want to keep evolving our battery technology, moving it more and more. A coworker and I were just talking the other day about battery-powered lawnmowers. Battery-powered lawnmowers have been around for a long time, but only till the last 5 years are we getting the right power profile, the right life profile out of a battery to make it feasible for anybody other than a very, very small backyard to use a battery-powered lawnmower. We want to keep piggybacking off of that consumer-based battery technology where they have high volumes and bring that into the industrial tool world where we can eliminate, access to electrical power, but we don't want to sacrifice any of the performance of the product. So if the battery life does not meet the spec, we need to continue to refine and enhance our motor technology and ultimately the tool technology so that the right amount of power is available to get all the way through your job application without causing a significant slowdown. So we're excited about battery technology. We're applying it to every product platform that we can throughout Enerpac, as well as the other tool manufacturers out in the industry. We absolutely understand that that's where the industry wants to go, and we always have to make sure that we are mating up our performance and our job completion and our safety right along with that huge convenience that comes along with battery-powered tools. Another area where we are innovating and trying to bring technology in is on the remote control side. We're all used to pendants, operating hydraulic pumps. That's what's been the industry standard going back decades. Wireless pendants are slowly starting to take hold, but again, we have a number of areas where we have to use caution to make sure that we don't give up any site performance. We can't have any communication issues. We can't have a lost Bluetooth signal, for example, in the middle of a job site. There's too many safety risks at hand. So as we move into wireless pendants, as we move into more and more remote control technology, the margin of error is slim. The burden of performance is very high. And we take that at the top of the list as we try to innovate our controls and our tools. Again, in our consumer lives, if you have a cell phone that's Bluetooth into a speaker and it cuts in and out every once in a while, sure, it's a little bit annoying, but you're certainly going to enjoy your time listening to music with a little bit of interruption. In a high force lifting circumstance where we may be lifting hundreds of tons or we may be controlling 10,000 PSI hydraulic torque tools, we cannot have that miscommunication. We need to make sure that the connectivity is high it's consistent, it's reliable, and that we work in every single bit of technology into that to make sure that you have safe operation on the site. As a fun note, I Googled real quick remote technology and TVs, because of course TV is a part of everyday life for a lot of people out there. And believe it or not, the TV remote goes back to 1950, and it was a corded TV remote. It didn't become a cordless TV remote till 1955. So, here we are 70 years later, and we're just getting it into the industrial space. But that's also important because we have to make sure that safety and performance is the most significant point in introducing technology, in innovating our products. Again, if the TV doesn't change channel, no problem. But if you lose a wireless signal, or we have to make sure that technology and that innovation is as strong as possible so that your site can continue to operate and get all the way through your job site safely. And another frontier that, again, we've been hearing about in our consumer lives for the last 5 to 10 years is all the cloud. Everything gets stored in the cloud, and you have all the major consumer companies like Amazon and the others, Google, creating cloud-based storage. We're absolutely going to be bringing that into the industrial tool space, and it already is there in some capacity. And think of owner's manuals as an easy one, being cloud-based. And we certainly still want to have the paper versions available, but having digital copies where we can update, we can do improvements to our tools over time, over the air, as they say, the OTA side, which again they can do on cars, they can do on other types of tools. So as we get into the cloud-based technology, there'll be more and more interface between the end user and the tools that you're using and the documentation that we're capturing, whether it be a calibration certificate, whether it be a maintenance interval, whether it be a training video. We're going to be working to build all of that technology into the palm of your hands. So the same way that you check in for a flight to go to a work event or a vacation and use the boarding pass on your phone, we want to work all that same convenience and technology into the industrial tool space. And again, some of these things are available already, but we have to be, really sure that we are always innovating and we're always improving. So, we're working on technology at Enerpac where you're actually able to scan your tools and save documents specifically to that serial number tool, and then save things to the cloud, where you can link them directly to the OEM spec, meaning the Enerpac specification for that tool. You can check against its current performance. You can check the age of the tool, the life cycles of the tool, all kinds of data at your fingertips, which of course is going to be a huge convenience to you. So just imagine it as your personal virtual toolbox. And imagine you're on a job site where you've got 50 lifting cylinders and 50 hand pumps and a number of hoses and accessories. You may have dozens of torque wrenches and torque wrench pumps, bolt tensioners, bolt tensioner pumps. And you can manage all those assets within an app and manage all the data and calibration certificates tied to that. That's the type of innovation that we're excited about at Enerpac, and I know other tool suppliers are looking to be in that space as well. As you dig into that type of activity for your own individual tool fleet, you're going to save time on looking up information, on searching for where to get files, where to look up calibration certificates. You'll have contact information at your fingertips. So if you're transitioning a set of tools from the East Coast to the West Coast, for example, you can transfer all the documents related to that set of tools from one side to the other within your organization, far more seamless than simply attaching a file to an email and sending it to a colleague. We can have everything cloud-based, and you'll be able to connect to those documents and owner's manuals to your tool sets. It's going to save a ton of time on your tool fleets and add productivity to it. So I wanted to also touch on a little bit of why tools are calibrated. So again, the idea behind tool fleet management, we want to make sure your tools are performing safely. We want to make sure that the tools are readily available. And then we want to make sure that your tools are doing exactly what you need them to do, exactly what the asset was designed to have done. So whether you're working on an oil and gas pipeline, or you're working on a nuclear generator or a gas turbine generator, anything like that, there's a specific design criteria to those assets, how they're assembled, how they're disassembled, and bolt stress, bolt load, that you need to have to safely operate those tools. So if we have the tools well managed, we know that they're going to operate safely, we know that they're readily available, so that for as on-demand needs come up, you can grab a tool, know where it's at, be assured that it's been looked over and it's going to operate safely. The last important component of that is that tool going to do what it says it's going to do? So again, in the torque wrench world, that's a straightforward as a 4,000 foot-pound torque wrench is going to produce 4,000 foot-pounds of torque at full pressure, or whatever the desired pressure and torque value is. And that's where calibration comes into play. So it's very important as we manage these tool fleets to make sure that they're doing exactly what they say they're going to do, and that's where calibration comes into play. So it comes down to that asset safety. As a gas generator, gas turbine is out there spinning in the field, producing electricity for all of us. We want to make sure that that's bolted together accurately, that we're not under-tightening bolts, that we're not over-tightening and possibly yielding bolts. Any of those could cause a tremendous safety hazard, and so it's really important that your tools are performing exactly the way they are designed to, and you're getting the proper output from that tool that you are expecting. And the same thing applies to lifting cylinders. The same thing applies to other industrial tools. Maybe you're cutting chain, maybe you're cutting rebar. Any of the industrial tool sets, you want to make sure that that tool is performing the way that you're expecting it to, performing the way that the job site requires to create a good, safe environment. Anytime that we're over-tightening bolts or under-tightening bolts, you're getting outside of a range of safety, and we certainly want to make sure that our tools are keeping us within that safety range at all times. And the other big benefit to well-calibrated tools is you get better asset performance. So as you can imagine, again, using the gas turbine generator as an example, you have efficiencies related to that gas turbine. And the tighter the specifications of bolt load are, the better they're assembled, the more accurate they're assembled, the more bolt load is perfected across the entire ring of turbine wheels, for example. That asset is going to perform better. The gas turbine will run longer, will run more consistent, will have less failure out in the field. So that'll make your job site more profitable. That'll make your maintenance cycle more predictable. If you have a little bit of bolt load deviation and that gas turbine has been rotating for a 6-month or year cycle, going through heating, hot and cold cycles, and you come up for a maintenance, you could have more surprises as you disassemble that rotor because there was a little bit of deviation from the bolt load. Whereas if you have well-calibrated torque tools, you know the exact bolt load and bolt specifications that you need to achieve. The whole design of that gas turbine will work exactly as the engineers designed for it, and you'll get better performance and better profitability ultimately out of your plants and equipment. So the importance of tool maintenance. This is where I talk about the tool availability. The tool is ready to perform the work. So if you think about a vehicle, jump one slide too ahead. If you think about a vehicle, we want to be able to walk outside of our house, put the key in the ignition or use the engine start button, and drive to work and go about your day without having to worry about whether the battery's charged, without having to worry about any type of mechanical issues. So we perform, vehicle maintenance. If a vehicle is going to sit for a long period of time, we put it on a battery tender. If we're driving excess miles, we have our oil changes every 5,000 miles or whatever the vehicle is calling for. That's all about maintaining that vehicle so that it gets you to and from work, to and from vacation, to and from family events, when you need it, when you want it. It is just as important, in fact, dollar-wise, more important, I would say, to have that same readily available status on all of your maintenance tools. So if you have pumps that are pumps that are not available, you're going to have to purchase more pumps to create the availability by having excess pumps. Whereas if we can get these industrial tools into a regular maintenance cycle, and that's going to vary dramatically between what the tool is, how the tool is used, in what environment the tool is used, that will set the rhythm for what the proper tool maintenance is going to be. Could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, even longer than a year, depending upon what that tool is. But setting that rhythm of this tool is now due for servicing, that will bring that tool in proactively, get it into a qualified technician's hands, visual inspection, disassemble the tool, re-grease the tool, reassemble it, give it a pressure test, likely give it a calibration, and make sure, again, that that tool is quote unquote green tagged. It's ready to go back into the field. So as a job need comes up and you need a 4,000 foot-pound torque wrench, or you need a 25-ton lifting cylinder, you can go to your tool fleet, you can go to your tool crib, and that tool is readily available. That saves you a huge amount of time. It saves you a lot of excess communication that's not needed, because there's the confidence between the field end users and the tool fleet managers that those tools are readily available. So tool maintenance is a big piece of that. Another big piece of tool maintenance that we've been working on at Enerpac is increasing the number of choices that our end users have to get the right specific tool for their job that they have. And again, I'm going to use bolting as an example and torque wrenches as an example, but know that I'd like to apply this to every single other industrial tool that might be in your tool fleet. So my first bullet point there is understanding the frequency of the usage and the bandwidth of the usage. So frequency is easy. How often are you using that tool? Is it twice a day? Is it twice a week? Even twice a year? We know that there's some assets that don't go through a huge amount of excessive usage, but when you need them to work. So maybe that torque wrench is only touched a couple times a year. In other bolting applications, especially during outage season, we know that those torque wrenches are being frequently used. Sometimes doing multiple flanges a day, sometimes even more than that, and it's high usage. So understanding how much heavy usage you're going to be using the torque wrench is an important part of finding that right tool. Bandwidth usage is also important. And what I mean by bandwidth usage is when you select, say, an 8,000 foot-pound torque wrench, let's say it's going to be a low-profile hex cassette, 8,000 foot-pound torque wrench. If you're repeatedly using that tool above the 80% mark of the torque wrench, you're going to have more wear and tear. You will want to have a shorter maintenance window so that tool comes in more frequently to inspect all the parts, to inspect all the pieces. Whereas on the flip side of the scale, maybe it's an 8,000 foot-pound torque wrench, but you're working on an application that only calls for 2,000 foot-pounds. So you're using significantly less bandwidth, is what I call it, of the tool, which is basically the output of the tool versus the max output. And you'll be able to stretch out that maintenance cycle a little bit longer and focus your efforts on tools that are getting used harder and heavier to make sure that those are green tags. So paying a lot of attention to your job site needs and how often you're using that tool, and then how hard you're using that tool. All of them have good safety factors. We can use our tools up to max pressure safely. That's why max pressure is there. But it's important to note that the wear and tear on the tool will increase, and therefore the tool maintenance cycle will need to increase alongside to make sure that tool works. That last bullet point is also understanding the long-term asset side of the fleet management versus the short-term fleet management, and that really gets more into the investment side of your tool fleet. If you know that the tool is going to be a long-term investment, even though you might be spending a little bit more up front, if it's going to be a long-term asset, you can spread that cost across maybe 10 different outage seasons. You can absorb a little bit more of that cost, have a more robust tool in hand, and the more robust tool, the heavier built tool, will give you better, reliable performance every single time you go to use that tool. So at Enerpac, we offer 3 different levels of torque wrenches. We have our S&W at the top, our RSL in the middle, and our newly launched HMT tool, which gives the end user more options. That there's more torque ranges available. There's different torque outputs, different size wrenches. We have square drive tools and low profile tools. So we wanted to create charts that would kind of visualize where these tools fit into selecting the best tool. And I'm a strong believer, working with the team on this portfolio that you see in front of you, I'm a big believer that all of these wrenches have a strong spot where they make their best business case to be used on a given application. It is not necessarily about, better or worse, stronger or less. It is about what specifically does your job site need, and being able to go to a tool manufacturer and work with your vendor, your channel partner, your distributor, your territory managers, and talk through the job. Again, how often are you using that tool? What's the bandwidth, meaning how hard is that tool being worked? You can greatly improve the productivity of that tool by better understanding how often and how harsh of an environment it is being used in. So it's my job within Enerpac to educate and train our territory managers, our distributor partners, our vendors, all of those relationships where an end user might come in contact with any of our industrial products, and give you the full breadth of options. So it's not one specific tool is the only option for you. We definitely want to have a couple different options for you, and then talk through the pros and cons of why you might want to use this torque wrench over that torque wrench, and make it more of a consultation. And again, the output of that consultation means that your tools will be more reliable. You will have dialed into the best option for that job, or the right tool for what that job site needs. And if you're going out to purchase some new tools and you only have one option, it's a lot harder to find exactly what you need. That's why at Enerpac we've really worked hard at giving more options in torque wrenches, more options in tensioners. For the same bolt size, you've got different options of higher usage, lower usage, more complex, less complex, and certainly different price points that are there as well. So we have these tools available. These pictures that you see in front of you, which we also call tools, to help describe the difference of the wrenches available on our website, and that's in the related content portion of this program that you're looking at now. And then this ties back into the calibration and the ongoing checks. The standard practice in the torque wrench world is that every 5,000 cycles or every 12 months, whichever comes first, you want to make sure that tool gets calibrated. And that is that point that I was sharing with you earlier, that not only is the tool available, not only do we want to make sure that tool always performs safely, we want to make sure that tool is giving you the output that you're expecting. It's giving you the output that it was designed to do. And the best way to do that is that annual calibration or 5,000 cycles. So again, if you're in a heavy use environment, you may be calibrating that tool every 6 months or every 3 months. It's very important to track and understand the usage of that tool and the bandwidth of that tool to set your calibration standard, that is going to best serve that tool. So you can get it into a qualified tool calibration company. Enerpac, we're certainly one of them. There's other tool manufacturers that offer calibrations. Work closely with them, understand exactly what you want to set for a maintenance interval, and then a calibration interval, and then make sure that tool is doing exactly what you want. I have a calibration certificate example on the right side. Different companies, different organizations are gonna have different variations of this, but ultimately we want to check that torque wrench at different pressures and make sure that the output is consistent. So we'll be giving you charts to check that against, tables to check that against, and of course dates and serial numbers and all that, so you can tie that directly to the tool that you're doing. We also just launched at Enerpac our safety torque checker. And that's what you see on the screen in that picture with a torque wrench in the middle. That's actually a briefcase size unit that you can take out to the job site and do an on-the-spot check of your pump, your hose, and your wrench to get a live torque output before it goes onto the flange. So, I believe that wrench that you see in front of you is a 4,000 foot-pound low-profile hex tool. It probably has a 2 3/8 inch across the flat nut size as a hex cassette. And it's going to be going onto a flange where it'll be used at, let's say, 2,000 foot-pounds of torque to bolt together the flange. So you'd want to give that, the tool will have a calibration in a lab that is a precise temperature and a calibrated bench and documentation that you see in front of you. And then that tool is going to go out into the field, get back into the rotation of the tool fleet as you manage it, and then go back out to the job. What the safety torque checker allows you to do is do a quick check of that torque wrench. It is not a replacement for a calibration certificate. It is simply a checking device. So it should be used in addition to your calibration cycle. But it'll give your end user, it'll give your job site a same day, same hour, even same minute almost torque check to ensure that that torque wrench is putting out the exact torque value that you're requiring for that job site. There could be a slight variation in the pump pressure, the gauge as it reads out on the pump. If that's reading at 5,100 psi instead of 5,000 psi, you'd have a slight variance in the torque output. So you actually can use this torque checker to get a quick verification of what the torque output is for the pump, the hose, and the tool that is immediately going to be used then on the job site. And again, that's important in your overall tool maintenance strategy to make sure that those tools are doing exactly what they're designed to do. So. And then we kind of circle back to that cloud-based point that I was bringing in earlier. So a part of maintaining those tools and making sure that you have good calibration cycles and making sure you have good maintenance cycles is keeping track of that data, making sure that the calibration certificates are readily available and located in a central location. And the best way to do that in today's day and age, just like an Amazon and other companies we use in our day-to-day lives, is to make that cloud-based. So we have a partner, a sister company over in the UK called the HTL Group. They're servicing the North Sea for torque and tension tools, and they have some great software called iCalibrate. And that's to store these documentations where you can actually scan a tool and save a document to the cloud and then access it for any of your tool fleet managers. It's a great piece of software. We're looking to bring that to a global scale at Enerpac, and I know other tool manufacturers are certainly working on cloud-based offerings, and they have versions out there already. But to my point I brought up earlier is, especially in our industry where we have high forces involved and we've got large assets involved, we have to make sure that our data is iron tight, because it's a little different if your Amazon package gets delivered to the neighbor next door. They can fix that within the app. It's very different in our industry to have real watertight technology that is user friendly, is connected. It's got great traceability, and is able to improve your tool fleet experience and your tool management. So this is all going into the data capture side of things for the tool itself. Not necessarily the work being performed by the tool. That's another form of data capture. This is for data capture of the tool, the calibration cycle, the maintenance cycle. When was the last repair? What was repaired? When was the last calibration? How did that calibration come out? Was it, plus or minus 3%, plus or minus 2%? How did that tool perform? And controlling those maintenance records and the data that comes out of that is the only way to do that at scale. And another piece that we have in tool management and tool fleet is joint integrity. And this is kind of where it ties it all together. So I've got just about 1 minute of a video that I wanted to share with you guys from our joint integrity team that many of you end users are familiar with. And this is where the tool fleet management, where the rubber hits the road, where when you're trying to, when you need to bolt together a flange and you need to get gasket compression perfected so you have a no leak startup, that is all tied to the joint integrity world. So I'll play a video here. It's 6 or 7 minutes in total. I won't be playing the whole video for you. It is available. We'll have it in related content. And you can also email me if you'd like to, and I can get you access to the video. But I just wanted to share with you, some of the usage side of the tools. So we'll get the video playing here in just a moment.
Every single leak has a negative impact and incurs a cost to your business. Leaks delay startups, cause unplanned shutdowns, adversely affect the brand image of your company, your operations, the safety of your staff, and they can have significant environmental impact. The total accumulated value of the 100 largest losses in the hydrocarbon industry as a result of leaks is over $33 billion. Furthermore, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers states that leaks from bolted joints equate to losses of over $100 million annually. But all leaks can be prevented. And with our track record, we at Hydrotite have proved it. Our joint integrity program results in the lowest cost, leak-free solutions for your plant, helping projects remain on schedule and on budget, eliminating rework and multiple tests, and providing safe and reliable operations using fully traceable solutions delivered to the best industry standards. Industry studies show that the majority of flange leaks are attributable to procedural, process, or operational failings. Surprisingly few are as a result of technical issues. Fundamentally, it is people and their competencies that prevent leaks. As a measure of our technical credibility, Hydrotite became the world's first ASME PCC1 qualifying organization, certified by Lloyd's Register Energy.
All right. Excellent. Just wanted to show a little bit of that animation and the tools in there. And I believe it directly applies to what this webinar is all about, which is keeping good controls, good practices around that tool side of things. Everything that video was talking about with joint integrity is only possible when the tools are well calibrated, well performing, they are well maintained, and of course, I say it all the time, they're readily available. That's a very important piece of tool fleet management. The finance team always likes, me to add that nod, because of course, if we aren't able to maintain our tools well, the tools are being overworked because it may not be quite the right tool for the job. Or to maintain and keep that tool green tagged, as I call it, or readily available, that simply means we have to purchase more assets. We have to purchase more tools to keep the availability high. And that may not be the right solution. In fact, I would argue it's much better to perfect your tool list, update your tool list as new technology comes in, better ergonomics, and let that provide a better tool experience for the end users, where it's safely performing for your end users day in, day out. So we'll just wrap this up quick.
Every single leak has a negative impact.
And I've got there we go. So I wanted to just kind of wrap this up, and then we can open up the lines and get into a little bit of question and answer sessions. But my favorite quote from that first slide is, again, that amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. And that is our industry. Our industry is about getting work done, keeping assets performing safely, performing well. That makes our companies run. That makes us enjoy our work. That makes us proud of our work. And so I put a lot of passion and pride behind the tooling side of that equation, because with getting the right tools into your hands and making sure that we maintain them properly, you will absolutely get the best uptime. Plant managers will be happy with your field team's efforts. Field teams will work faster. They'll be more effective. They'll be more efficient. And that all comes down to having that effective tool fleet, making sure that the right tools are there, they're well maintained. And there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make that tool available. The data documentation, the calibration certificates, understanding when that tool was last reviewed. And again, I talked a lot about torque wrenches on today's call, but again, I apply that to any industrial product that is out there from any tool manufacturer that is out there. Being a good, close partner with your tool provider and the tool manufacturer, such as Enerpac, is only going to benefit that tool fleet and your experience and your management of it, so that, again, you get the absolute best performance. So, on this slide, I summarized it by we always want to be reviewing the job specs, working with you guys to understand exactly what we're lifting, exactly what we're pulling, exactly what we're tightening. Whatever the specific job is, we want to understand that as your tooling partner. Then we want to push in as much technology support as we can. Easy stuff like a website, Enerpac.com, having owner's manuals and pressure charts on it. But more advanced stuff such as an Enerpac Connect app or cloud-based certificate depository. And then, lastly, bringing out new and innovative products like our safety torque checker, which will provide a quick maintenance check out in the field to give you that last bit of confidence in that tool, in the hose, in the pump, that how you're setting up your pump and your hose and your tool is going to perform exactly the way that you need it to, exactly the way that the asset that you are working on, assembling, disassembling, or simply doing a basic maintenance on, that asset is getting exactly the forces and pressures that it's designed to receive. So we kind of lump all that into one, and it is about getting that best tool solution. Getting the best tool solution will provide you with safer, longer life cycle tools in your fleet. You will get better productivity. You will get happier end user teams, all across North and South America, and really all across the world. We know that tools mobilize; they go from this job site to the other job site. Having confidence in those tools as they perform work and then transport from job site to job site is all related to this heavy management of that tool fleet. And Enerpac and the other tool manufacturers that are out there, we all need to make sure we're heavily dedicated. We are heavily dedicated to working closely with you guys, your tool fleets, and your site needs. So, so then we'll open up some Q&A time, and we'll see if we can get a couple of questions and answers. And we've got about 10, 11 minutes left. So, okay, we do have good Q&A here. Okay, so we've got first question in. What is your calibration standard followed for Enerpac torque tools? So great question. We're in the same boat as the industry standard, which is 5,000 cycles or 12 months. But it heavily depends on what your job site needs are. So when you purchase a new S&W torque wrench or an RSL torque wrench or an HMT torque wrench, it will come out of the box stating 5,000 cycles or 12 months. That's what we're going to start with. Once we work with your job site and once we work with what the end user's needs are of that torque wrench, we may refine that to a shorter window. I think in a very rare circumstance, we would extend that window. But for the most part, we stick to that industry standard of 5,000 cycles or 12 months. So thank you for that question. Please send the video and audio of the webinar. Will do. We'll get that sent over to you. Do the tools have cycle counters? We have cycle counters on our pumps. We do not put them on the tools themselves as of now. We have, with the exception of some bolt tensioners, we do have cycle counters on. But currently, we try to manage all that with our pump, where we can do cycle counters. How many pressure values is the tool calibrated to? It's 10. We use 10 different intervals, 1,000 up to 10,000, and check the torque output at all of the different pressures. Good question. What consensus standard is referenced when calibrating tools? Consensus standard. So PJLA is usually the laboratory standards that we hold to. It's an ISO 17025 standard that we at Enerpac keep all of our labs calibrated to, and I believe most of the other torque wrench calibration companies out there are following suit with that. I mean, ultimately, it is about, ASME and the other large flange calculations. They're the ones that truly set the standard. We then try to bring in laboratory standards that fit that bill. So I think that's what you're asking with that question. Let's see. How does Enerpac work with OEMs? Good question. So we work a lot with manufacturers of wind turbines and gas turbines and, any of the nuclear power plant companies, oil and gas companies, drilling rigs, offshore rigs. We work with the OEMs a lot. It depends on the industry as to how much and how frequent. A big one for us is the nuclear industry. When they're on the refueling floor, that's all OEM equipment, and we make custom equipment for every single nuclear refueling practice for bolting. So it depends on the OEM, depends on the industry, but we definitely work with all the OEMs globally. And we want to work more with them, but it does depend on the industry to how frequently we're working closely with them. What is the biggest productivity mistake that users usually make? My big benchmark for that personally is the red, yellow, green tag. So the red tag is tool came back in, it is inoperable. Yellow tag is the tool came back in, it's operable, but we don't know to what extent. And then green tag is readily available. The biggest productivity mistake is not utilizing some form of that, go, no go process for a visual inspection on whether a tool is ready to go. But then letting what I would call yellow tags sit too long. So a yellow tag, so the red tag tools come in that are visually broken, clearly broken, need to go through a repair process. They get all the time and attention, they get brought back up to green tag. A lot of times what I see in fleet management is that the yellow tag tools, which it's kind of the unknown quantity, they came off of the job, they appear to still be in working order, but we don't know. You want to have a good, robust check between the yellow tag and the green tag status, so that lifting cylinder, that torque wrench, that pump goes through a heavy battery of tests before you get it green tagged again to go back onto the shelf. Because that is the biggest issue, is when an end user gets a box full of tools, a knack box full of tools, or a trailer full of tools, for example, we really need 100% performance out of that tool. So if it wasn't tested hard enough to go from yellow tag to green tag, it may have an earlier failure on the job site, and we want to avoid those. So a green tagged asset, a green tag tool needs to be tested hard, tested well to make sure that it's really going to perform to get through that entire job. So good question there. How has safety in industrial tools changed? That's a great question as well. I had that earlier slide where we had a hydraulic cylinder pushing a torque wrench arm that was completely exposed. So an easy one was, we can't have hands coming in and out of that, so we had to put enclosures between the hydraulic cylinder and the torque wrench. So any torque wrench that you see today from a modern manufacturer, the S&W wrench, the RSL wrench, the HMT wrench from Enerpac, those are fully enclosed. They don't have any exposed moving parts. And that is a much safer side. The other big thing is handling and lifting. So a lot of operators can have fatigue issues if they're lifting too frequently or it's an awkward lift. So we want to make sure that we're launching products that have safe lifting points and ergonomics for being handled out in the field. So you can't let the weight get too far away from your center of gravity, or it's going to overstress your body as the operator and cause early fatigue. So good handling points that are ergonomically friendly, and then managing the weight of the tools so that it's in a safe environment. I would say those are the biggest safety pieces today. And then the safety torque checker, which we just launched, is about safety as well. Being able to put a torque wrench basically into a briefcase and do a quick last minute torque check is also a good safety feature there. Let's see, we got another question. Which components need calibration, pumps and wrenches? So when calibration first started becoming a thing, it was always the gauge. The gauge has the most variance on the pump. So you want to make sure that the pump gauge is being calibrated first and foremost. But what we found over the last 20 years of using torque wrenches out in the field, the internal working components of a torque wrench, they can have a change in friction. As components wear down over time, they get to have a looser fit. That looser fit changes the friction inside of the torque wrench, and that can ultimately change the wrench's output. So today, we absolutely want to calibrate torque wrenches, and we absolutely want to calibrate torque wrench pumps. So really both sides of that system to get the most consistency. So, all of our torque wrenches at Enerpac are designed to plus or minus 3% accuracy. And that meets the industry standard, that's better than the industry standard, which is plus or minus 5. Most torque wrench manufacturers are targeting that plus or minus 3%. So we want to do it on both the pump side and the wrench side. So thank you for that question there. Looks like that wraps up the Q&A. And the timing is good. It's 11:57, and a good round of Q&A. So much appreciated to everybody that pushed questions our way. I'm more than happy to be a resource for you guys moving forward. My email address is available to you. Feel free to reach out. As you can tell, my background is bolting, but I certainly can get you to the right Enerpac contact if it's lifting on cylinders, if it's cutting tools, if it's machining tools, gantry lifts, whatever your Enerpac product is, or any industrial product for that matter. Feel free to reach out to me, and we'll get your questions answered. So,
very good, John. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. John's email is in that related content box. You can click on it, and it should pre-fill your own email client. Also, in that related content, there's specific URLs to different parts of the Enerpac site, and the entire video link is there as well. So I wanted to thank our sponsor, Enerpac, and thank John for his great presentation. You can click on one of those links I just pointed to, or just go to enerpac.com. On behalf of everyone at BIC Magazine, I'd like to thank you for being here today. You can watch and share this recorded presentation in about 2 hours. It'll be posted at bicwebinars.com or by using the same link that you used today. Please bookmark bicmagazine.com for access to articles and videos on news, trends, industry expansions, and technical knowledge you need to stay ahead in your business and in your career. Thanks very much, and have a safe day.